Andy, I really do love the springtime, when the blooms are coming out, the trees are fully
The
out,
blooming, yeah.
it's good. The one thing I hate though is the pollen and the allergies. It's killing me right now, Andy. It's killing me. So,
Yeah, I think the Mid-Atlantic is pretty notorious for that, Dave, and it's a mixed blessing, right? You get the warm weather, you get the sun, you get the beautiful trees and flowers blooming, and your brain and head go completely to hell as you can't breathe, you're sneezing. It's a mixed blessing. It's a mixed blessing. I get pissed off when I go outside. I've steadily over the 10 years that my wife and I and our kids have lived in the house we live in now, I'm killing trees. It's been a hobby of mine as I slowly kill trees around my property because they provide no value. I think the several trees on my property are not creating a greater oxygen level for the earth, right? There's plenty of forests to do that. And all they do is cause me more work. So over time, I've slowly eliminated them. I took down the biggest, most annoying one just a few weeks ago. And I was like, surely I'll have less pollen on my cars now. And I go out on my car, it's just like my cars are yellow and it
yeah.
drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. So yeah,
And
this
then you
this
you
is
try to do the windshield wiper, stuff, and then it just makes it even
yeah.
muckier.
Then you just got like glue on your
Yeah,
windshield. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It, it's
such problems we have, Dave. Such absolutely horrid problems we have having to
I
deal with the
know.
beautiful spring of the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, hopefully, just to be a little bit more, a couple more weeks, we'll get through this, and we will endure, Andy. We will
Yeah,
endure
we'll make it
from
through.
her.
We'll make it through. Yeah.
So, all right, Andy, a couple of areas to go in. We haven't really touched politics in a while, Andy.
Yeah.
Um,
It's been
I,
nice. Been nice,
it,
Dave.
it has been nice. I can't deny it. I mean, Trump has got his legal hush money court case going on, but I don't want to talk about that. Want to talk about let's start with RFK Jr., Andy,
Yeah.
and the third party candidate came out recently and talked about how Trump had previously, this is in a time when both sides, Republicans and Democrats, are trying to make Kennedy a non-factor because I
Yeah.
think they recognize that he can be a factor. I mean, look, the history of third parties in presidential elections in since I guess 1990 have been impactful. Ross Perot was very impactful.
Yeah.
Even in 2016, Jill Stein was impactful in one state, which did impact the election.
Yeah. Ralph
Uh,
Nader, 2000.
yeah, I mean, in the year 2000. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that these candidates, they don't need to have national appeal necessarily, but if they have enough appeal in one state, it can really impact it.
Yeah.
Um, and so both of these candidates are rushing to kind of get ahead of any momentum that RFK could build. They're certainly not going to invite him to any debates, I would imagine, which is unfortunate. But there is, RFK's come out and said, "Hey, Trump previously asked for him to be a running mate, or at least consider a running mate."
Yeah.
How much of that do we know to be? How accurate is that, or how much is that like, "Hey, Robbie, I'm a little." What's going on? Are you interested in what do you think of Trump? And I don't know if he took that as a running mate type of thing or if it was a full blown consideration. But nonetheless, find it interesting that these stories do come out. I mean, Trump has been on his Truth Social, I think it's called, Truth Social, bashing in RFK Jr. So it's interesting to see this stuff come out. Do you make anything of this, Andy, at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, it got some attention this time, right? He's made comments like this before. It was a few months back. He made a similar sort of statement that the Trump campaign had reached out to him, and I believe that's possible. Whether explicit or sort of feeling things out. I could see that, right? I mean, Trump for all the far right sort of association that he has. Like what was interesting about him when he first started campaigning is that he's a guy without real firm beliefs, principles, positions, right? It's about being president, not so much about any specific agenda that he's had. So it's interesting, so, he had the potential to be, and it's hard to believe in 24 here, but he had the potential to be a unifying candidate because he was sort of in the middle and moderate. You sort of seeing that with his recent statement on his abortion position is kind of, not making some of his base very happy right now because there's a little bit more of a moderate position. Um, I can see him reaching out to RFK, right? Because that could have been an appealing ticket to a lot of people that otherwise might not vote for Trump, right? It would piss off a lot of people, but they're probably still going to vote for Trump, and I think it would appeal. So I think I can see that being real. It's a weird mix-up, to put those two together, but I could see that. And RFK is a threat to both of these two guys, and you don't know how things are going to play out. If Trump's court antics carry on, some of his voters could want to peel off, not be interested in Biden, and move to RFK. Similarly, RFK could siphon off just enough votes in that one or two key states to really threaten Biden. It's really interesting to see how these third parties play out because it's so unpredictable, especially this far out. But I think there may have been overtures. I could see how that could have happened. I don't see that RFK would have taken that bait. The guy wants to run for president, and he's going to. And I also know, Dave, that they can skip him in the debates if they have them. The networks have reached out and said, "Hey, we want presidential debates. You guys should really do this." I think Trump and Biden could be lured into it, except if RFK ends up polling at like 8, 9, 10, 15%, which he's been floating at. I don't know if they can say he's not going to be at the debates either. So they might skip the debates just to avoid giving him more of a
Yeah.
stage. So look, our RFK's as bad a candidate as the others. He's not in the but he's still a third choice, which I think is really good. So it's interesting. There's interesting to see this crazy dynamic as Trump sits there and falls asleep in court, and Biden walks around confused on stage, and RFK continues his sort of campaign for legitimacy. It's interesting to see these guys continue on.
Yeah, I'm. This stuff is just nauseating to me. Like the whole thing with like the Trump sleeping in court, is that him being a power player? Or is that him being old? I'm gonna show you how much I hate being here. I'm gonna just fall asleep in court and I'm gonna be disruptive. It's what
I think
an
he's old, Dave.
asshole.
Because cameras weren't there, right? He wasn't able to make a theater of it, right? It was just reporters. No media cameras were there. I think. I mean, look, we've both probably fallen asleep at times we didn't intend to, right? I mean, I know I
Yeah.
can think of situations, where I wouldn't have chosen to fall asleep, where I went out and look, it's the guy's up at 2:30 in the morning posting on social media. He's got to get his Z's in somewhere, and I guess he felt like the courtroom was the most appropriate place. So, this does not bode well for American democracy, Dave.
I I tell you, God help us. Okay, Andy, another topic that's come up, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past, is Katie Couric was on Bill
Yeah,
Maher's podcast, and was talking about Trump and his MAGA followers, and said this, Andy: the socioeconomic disparities are a lot, and class resentment is a lot, and anti-intellectualism and elitism is what is driving many of these anti-establishment people, which are Trump voters. So I think that is a huge problem that we have to address.
yeah,
And then, I mean, globalization and the transition from an industrial to a technological society. I don't know if you've ever been jealous of someone else or resentful. It's such a corroding and bitter, almost bile feeling. Andy, these type of comments from
yeah,
Katie Couric are things we've heard before. The Trump voters are stupid. They're rednecks. They're hicks. They're anti-intellectual. They can't possibly understand the world that we do,
yeah,
which is probably exactly the reason why they don't want to vote for your side. Um, but Andy, evidence shows contrary.
yeah,
In fact, evidence shows that the Trump base is more, a lot more college educated than not. Predominantly, there's a lot more growing increases in women, growing increases in minorities, and so I think this type of statement from who is supposed to be an established reporter, a media personality, is exactly the reason why I think Trump has the followers that he does.
yeah,
Hey, you're belittling me, you're calling me not on your level, and you're saying the only reason I would vote for this guy is because I'm not as smart as you are.
yeah.
Um, I hate these comments. These are fucking stupid comments,
Yeah.
and it just goes to show a lack of understanding about what the root of some of these issues are. That I think Trump does. Look, I hate Trump. I don't think anybody who listens to this podcast can feel otherwise. I'm not going to vote for him, but at the same time, is like he appeals to a base because he
Yeah.
is speaking to people who feel left out.
Yeah.
And whether you believe that or not, it doesn't matter. But that's what's happening. And so I don't know, Andy. What do you think when you see these type of comments?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that she used the term elitism, 'cause that's exactly what she's putting on display here, right? I mean,
Right.
this is why people hate part of the left, because there is an intellectual elitism, a we're better than you take to it, right? So I mean, look, I've made fun. I think when I had my solo, episode of the podcast, Dave, I made fun of a couple Trump supporters because of their extreme positions, right? I mean, yes,
Right.
but those exist on the left as well. There's just in every community out there, right? So to dismiss an entire group of voters as stupid, intellectually lazy, they must be, angry and outside the mainstream, it's just not true. Like Trump can get, like statistically, 47% of the vote. That's not a fringe part of society, right? He's not an outside third party candidate that's going to get, 5% of disgruntled Americans. And you've seen other things, that circulate on social media where people take a photo of, some small, five, six people at a Trump rally that aren't maybe in the best position, don't look, in their sharpest moment. And they'll be like, oh, here's your typical Trump voter, right? And it's absolutely lazy, disrespectful bullshit because you've got idiots on the left, right, and everywhere in between. And these kind of comments, you got exactly right. They make people look at Katie Couric, at others, and say, you suck. This is why I don't want to support you and your elite candidates. And this is why people start to believe that there is a media, deep state conspiracy, right, where people are trying to suppress these votes and keep Trump out of office. It looks shitty. It is shitty. And it's complete disrespect. There's a lot of very smart, very capable, very financially successful Trump supporters. They just hold a different opinion than Joe Biden supporters do. Now, you might think that opinion's crazy, right? And are some of those supporters nuts? Yeah, 100%. I mean, 100%. Can you and I disagree with January 6th? Can you and I think that Trump is a threat to American society? 100%. Does that mean that those that support him and don't agree with us are dumb, ignorant, lazy? No, like absolutely not. And it's that kind of disparaging, dismissive remark that makes people really hate the media. And it shows that Katie Couric is, and again, I've only got limited context here. I didn't watch the whole episode, but that is an absolutely elitist and arrogant comment that turns off so many people, so many people. It was a pretty shitty thing to say. The way that at least that it's been shared, here, and you can see the video of it. There's more available if people want, but yeah, I hate that kind of stuff, Dave. It's really pathetic.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure Katie will probably try to spin it some way or whatever to try to get. I mean, she's long been past relevant in on media circles and on like in a prime time fashion, but she still holds a lot of influence in a lot of places. I mean, let's just be real. We talked about the 2016 election, Trump winning Wisconsin. I mean,
Yeah.
that type of thinking and mentality is exactly why Wisconsin did one way. And Jill Stein had a part in that as well, but it was also because that elitist mentality and people in Wisconsin were not feeling the economic, successes that that a lot of people were feeling. They felt left behind, they felt left out, and they felt Trump spoke to them on that. And so I think that's the kind of understanding that's you called it. It's lazy, right? It's a lazy journalism. It's lazy approaches because you're not really trying to get into the root of the issue. You're trying to, make excuses for why your side may or may not have won. I mentioned Bill Maher, Andy, because he had a podcast. He also has a very successful show. I didn't share this with you, Andy, just beforehand. So if I catch you off guard, have you seen Bill Maher's recent comments about abortion on his show? He was talking about abortion with regards on his weekly show on HBO, talking about Trump's position, which the obviously the Republicans have been working many years since
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade to overturn Roe v. Wade, and that was overturned a couple years back with another court case that really effectively gave power to the states.
Yeah.
They said, "Look, this is not a federal issue; it's a state issue. You guys deal with it on your own." Several states have taken their approaches. Well, now I don't want to say Trump has had a wild view, as many people struggle with abortion. The abortion is not an easy topic to deal
One of the
with.
hardest issues in our country, Dave. I think it's one of the top two most difficult issues for anybody.
Yeah, and I think it's just very challenging. And Trump
Yeah.
has very stated positions on both sides of this aisle.
Yeah.
And recently he's come out and said it is a state's issue to put, to make decisions on what they should or should not be doing. This is with respect to a controversial Arizona law and how, because Arizona is now a in place state, they would consider it, something that to really look after. And anyways, Bill Maher has come out and basically said, uh, you know, the reason the Republicans are trying to play, or Trump is trying to play both sides. He's trying to appeal to the pro-life people by continuing to say it's something that the states can deal with, and
Yeah.
and he respects that. But at the same time, he's also trying to say, cover some of the pro-choice field. And Bill Maher had I think he said you know, this is hard. I'm trying to capture it in the right way, but effectively, the pro-life movement gets branded as anti-woman. Oh, you're not for women's rights. And in fact, Bill Maher just kind of came out and said, he goes, a lot of people think it's murder. They don't understand the 15-week thing or Trump's plan is, let's leave it to the states. You mean so killing babies is okay in some states? So, but he says, I can respect the absolutionist position. I really can. I scold the left when they say, oh, you know what? They just hate people.
Yeah.
Who aren't pro-choice. They don't hate people. They don't hate people. He continued to say they think it's murder, and it kind of is.
Yeah.
I'm just okay, and this is where some of the controversial is because they think it's murder, and it kind of is. I'm just okay with it. I mean, there is 8 billion people in the world. I'm sorry, we won't miss you. That's my position on it. I mean, he just came out and said, look. I mean, the pro-choice people, I mean, it's murder for them. I mean, you're killing a baby,
Pro
and
life. Pro life.
I'm sorry, so you're killing a baby. Whereas, obviously there's the other side to it. I don't know if we want to get into this, Andy, but I found it to be fascinating that he just came out, and I have gained some appreciation for Bill Maher because he
Yeah.
really ridicules both sides here on many issues. I mean, he calls it for what it is. It's kind of unfiltered. I think both sides equally hate him. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. But I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I was just interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Bill Maher is often right. I do tend to find his comments usually pretty non-politically motivated, and
Yep.
oftentimes I think he's right. And look, abortion is the most complicated issue. Might not be a hard issue for some people that are firmly, in their belief on whatever position they have, but it's an incredibly complex issue because you got it right, Dave. If you believe that life begins at conception, then the act of abortion is killing a baby. Taking away human life. It's a type of murder. Right now, when it comes to faith, you can argue what the Old Testament, the New Testament, what they say on that a lot of different ways, right? So you've got both Christians and Jews. I don't know the Muslim faith as well, right? But both Christians and Jews can make the case for why abortion is permissible or not permissible based on the Bible. And so it's a complicated issue, right? There's no like, and both sides are sure of what they say, oftentimes, right? As we often are when we're basing something on faith. So if you hold that position, like your logic to say abortion should be illegal, like makes sense, right? And if you don't hold that position, your logic that there's other factors that are more important can also make sense, right? It's a very difficult issue, and because it's such a like core moral belief, it's very like no one can. It's very hard to convince somebody of either to change sides, and we're a very evenly split nation on this topic. It's a very complicated issue. I don't personally. So look, I mean, I'll share my take, Dave. First, I do believe that life begins at conception. I do believe that when you have an abortion, you are ending a life. I do not think that abortion should be taken as lightly as it often is in our society. I don't support a legal ban, and that's for a lot of reasons. I don't think it's enforceable. I think it can lead to more harm. It can lead to more trauma for those in the womb. It's a dangerous, and it's a complicated issue that I don't think you can enforce it upon half the nation disagrees with that position, right? So for those that are motivated by faith or their belief in the sanctity of life, even if it's not driven by faith, like I think you can go out there and plead your case, campaign, lobby, try and convince people, give them other options, do all those things that are short of forcing somebody into accepting your decision. Because, like, to force somebody to have a child if they don't want that child, like, that's also a disastrous situation, right? And we know the reality that those with the financial means will always have access to abortion, as they always have, whether it's legal or illegal. They can get it done safely, discreetly. Those without the financial means simply can't. And so you end up with disgusting abortion type activities that are done illegally and dangerously. So it's a unenforceable law. Unenforceable laws are bad laws, right? So to me, like Trump's position on this, to be honest, I don't disagree with it, right? Like to me, it would be, I think abortion should be legal across the country because I think, again, it's not enforceable. But I don't disagree with it being a state level decision. And what's interesting, just a couple of days ago, I've mentioned Elizabeth Nolan Brown, Region Magazine, a couple of times. She does some really great work there. She showed that when abortion goes to the states and when it's put in the hands of voters to decide through direct democracy on the abortion issue, the pro-choice side wins almost every time, right? So I think most Americans, regardless of their personal faith, do lean pro-choice when it's a legal position, but they're making that choice at the state level. What we find is politicians, like they often like to do, don't really represent the interests of their people. They take divisive issues to garner support and get financial support, get their base to vote for them, as they take more extreme positions and rhetoric, which aren't necessarily good for America. So it's a very complicated issue. I think Bill Maher is probably right, although I wouldn't mock the termination of life sort of the way he did, but he's an entertainer too, right? So he's going to say things that are a little bit like that. But it's a difficult issue. We can talk about lots and lots more. Again, I know people take very hardened positions here, as people might not agree with, you, me, Bill Maher, or anybody else. But ultimately, a pro-life, absolute anti-abortion position is bad law, even if you believe it morally. I think, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I find this continue to be fascinating how it is. I do believe that yeah, I'm with you. Life begins at conception. I do feel like you're terminating a child, but at the same time, is there are there are circumstances in which, I can believe, I believe we should be supporting women's rights to choose.
Yeah.
And I think we should be providing the appropriate care for women in whatever choice they make. That doesn't, I don't agree on certain elements of it. And I don't think it should be, as you said, as haphazard as some of them may be. But I also don't think that it's an easy choice one way or the other for women. These are extremely difficult decisions, and we should be supporting as much as we can. So I think
And,
this.
and, and most Americans are pretty like
Yeah,
understanding and compassionate on this issue. I mean, like if you talk to average American, like people that have understanding whether they agree or disagree with pro-life, but like it's again, it's politics and the divisive, media and political class that take these issues and make them so polarizing.
yeah.
Most Americans are like, hey, I support some choice, right? I support the legal permission to have abortion to a certain level, like there's an openness to like reasonable, and most people don't want to have abortions, right? Most people aren't like most
Yeah.
Americans don't want to have abortion available till delivery. Most people don't want to ever go through an abortion, right? Like people are much more moderate, understanding, and compassionate on this issue than what we sort of get in the news and everything else.
If only there was a moderate candidate out there, Andy, somewhere. If only there was a party that represented common sense issues and took some of the political divisiveness out of this. Look, it doesn't have to always be black and white or right or wrong. It's there's a lot of opportunity there. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate. So, Andy, let's wrap that up. I think there's good discussion on some politics, not necessarily. We're still marching on towards the conventions. I'm still going to be excited to see where we go there.
Yeah.
Contested convention, contested convention. Come on, let's go. I'm less and less positive about that nowadays. Andy, one last thing. Did you, as we wrap up this week, did you watch the WNBA draft by any chance?
I didn't watch it, but I did see what happened.
Yeah, it was kind of, I mean, look, I think there's a lot. We talked about this with the women's Final Four and the
Yeah.
NCAA tournament. Caitlin Clark is obviously a superstar. They like she's been known to be the number one draft pick for years. She was the number one draft pick. Um, and other teams around the league are selling out buildings already, or they're moving to larger venues when they were going to play Indiana. The Indiana Fever, I think, is what their team is,
Yeah.
um, and when she shows up in town, they're moving to bigger venues than what they were previously playing in. Andy, there's a lot of excitement around women's basketball, whether it be college or professional. It was kind of exciting to see a lot of that. There's a lot of good buzz around there.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome, right? I mean, it's amazing what a player can do, right? When people get excited, because I mean, look, let's be honest, the WNBA has not been very successful. Most people don't care. It hasn't been like the level of play hasn't been enough to excite most folks, right? But Caitlin Clark does. Like she plays basketball. She's a very good basketball player, regardless of gender, and people are excited. And that's great for women's sports. That's great for the WNBA, and it's really fun to see people be like, "Oh, I want to check this out. I want to see her play." Like that opens a whole door of opportunity for the sport, and it's great for young female athletes to see, "Hey, here's someone I can relate with. Here's somebody making a difference, for the sport and getting national attention." Like that's exciting for young girls playing sports or doing anything, right? To see someone they can say, "Hey, look at her," and see themselves in her. I think it's awesome. So, congratulations to Caitlin Clark. I mean, she's been the story for the last year, especially through March Madness. And exciting to be the number one pick in any sport is amazing. And so, congratulations to her. Congratulations to the Indiana Fever. WNBA probably among the worst team names in all of pro sports. Like, let's work on that WNBA. But besides that, it's really exciting. And yeah, I think it's an exciting time for women's sports and for America to see this much attention being paid to a women's professional sports. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think these second tier sports leagues. You obviously have the big four, and even hockey is kind of on. It's like in between the first and second. I mean, you obviously have MLB, the baseball, and NBA, which is now going into the playoffs, and then the NFL, of course, is king. And then you have like hockey, which may be a little bit beneath there. And then you have these second level sports leagues. I think MLS but look how long these leagues have taken,
Yeah,
and I think it makes sense, right? I mean, baseball, when they started, it was the only sport in town. Football wasn't really even an option then. But so they had everything. They had the sports media. The baseball players were legendary, iconic. NBA, it took NBA a long time until you had transformational players come in.
yeah,
Magic and Bird are or identified as saving basketball. Then Jordan came in, and then and then it rolled from there. But the NBA finals were on tape delay at some points for much of the 70s into the early 80s. So, I mean, these leagues take some time. And the MLS is really growing. They've gotten a lot of strength. The soccer has grown in the United States. The WNBA has been around for a long time. I think it's over 25 years. And then we even talk about the Premier Lacrosse League. It's only been around for about 5 years, even though Major League Lacrosse was around before. I just wish that some of these sports leagues would really consider their schedule. The WNBA and both the Premier Lacrosse League, both of their championships are against football.
yeah.
Like, why are you going to go against the king of sports? Put it in this time of year where there's not a whole lot of stuff going on. The Premier Lacrosse League should be playing now. I mean, there's no reason they don't. Now, they don't want to conflict with college lacrosse, which is more popular. But look, I mean, you can have both. So I just wish they would not go. You're not going to get championship ratings when you're playing against NFL Week 4. I'm just telling you, it's just not going to happen. So that's my wish for those groups. So
Well, I sit here in my PLL shirt, Dave, from the 2021 championships were played here in DC. I don't disagree with any of that. And it does take time. It is hard to break in and to sustain a league, right? I mean,
yeah,
it takes a lot of success, it takes a lot of people working together, and it takes deliberative. I mean, it's hard, but it is fun. And also, for I don't disagree with the PLL, comment on the schedule, but I will say the first PLL championship was played in Philadelphia, and it was quite a weekend for us. We were up there for the PLL championship on Saturday, a beautiful Saturday to watch a few lacrosse games, and then the following day was Lions at Eagles in Philly, and I was just it was probably the best sports weekend I've ever had. So in that weekend, at least, it worked out pretty well. But yeah, it's tough. I think it is tough, and again, it does take those attention-getting, transformational, potentially generational players to elevate the game and draw Americans in. Hopefully, it can sustain. Hopefully, it can sustain.
yeah.
It's fun to have options. It's fun to see people get excited about their given sport and league. And it's really fun to see women's sports, start to get attention. One sport that's never broken through that I think would like I think we're missing out on volleybball. Both
Oh
men's
yeah.
and especially women's volleyball. Like I think those are great sports that I think could be fun leagues and fun to go see games. I'm still waiting for that to break through in the US. It's popular in Europe. It hasn't broken through here. We're
I,
talking about pickleball
I
for
mean,
guys.
I remember the early '90s. Beach volleyball was on regularly. I mean, you had
Yeah.
Kurt Steffes and Karch Karai. Those they were dominating the uh, pro beach volleyball circuit for a long time. You had a lot of, but then it did tail off. I enjoyed it. I agree. I enjoyed watching beach volleyball. It was a lot of fun. I definitely agree with you there. I like volleyball in general. I wish my daughter would have kept playing it, but she chose to just focus on lacrosse. So, all right, Andy, that wraps up a pretty good Wednesday. We didn't have any waste comments this time. Well, there could have been some. Katie
There
Couric.
was some waste in there. Yeah, there's some waste
Yeah,
in there.
Katie Couric was some wasteful
Yeah, there you
comment.
go. There you go.
Let's nominate her this week. All right, Andy. With that, I will catch up with you next time.